So I am Erica Moy, and I've been a facilitator with All Learners for about 3 or so years, and started participating in cohorts about 4.5 years ago. And we are going to look at the HLC progressions today, and Ashley's here to join us at least for part of the time. She has been working on this. It's something that the northern, or basically better labeled as Chittenden County or Greater Chittenden County area, cohort started last year. And so I'm gonna share the presentation in the chat, and I'm just gonna post it as a link because I learned last night that when I tried to do the file share, it didn't work like it was supposed to. So hopefully everyone can access that. And if anybody has any trouble, just stop me, let me know. And I'm going to share my screen for a little bit, and I'll kind of do a mix of sharing my screen and then just having conversations with all of you. And so All Learners Network has established these common agreements that when we come together, we're really thinking about supporting all learners. And as professionals, we're agreeing to have open dialogue, share the air, and honor private think time, which is a good reminder that we want to do and encourage our students to do as well. To be fully present and engaged, take care of yourself as you need to throughout this time. If possible, keep your video on when we're having our conversations, and really appreciate that learning is a process and not a single event. And we're all here with positive intentions, and we're going to embrace the struggle and challenge of learning new things. Ashley, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Ashley Marlow. I'm a third grade teacher at Mallett's Bay School in Colchester. I'm also a facilitator for All Learners Network. I started working with the All Learners Network about 1.5 years ago. So hi. And I'm the one presenting the same version of this at 12:15. So if you come to this one, it's going to be pretty similar. We're just going to focus more on the 3 to 5 band, but we'll share with you this morning all of the same links that I'm going to share this afternoon. So if you're someone who, I heard a lot of you say you're K to 5, K to 8, your district level support, so you'll still have access to the same 3 to 5 folder as well. I just wanted to let you know so you don't feel like you have to come to both. I know there's a lot of options today.
All right, so let's jump back to the PowerPoint and take a minute. We wanted to kind of let you have the opportunity to really establish why you're here today. So if you want to put your answers into the Menti, and it is linked in the PowerPoint, so you should have that link as well. We'll give it just another minute for people who are still adding their responses.
Throughout this presentation, we tried to include some tools that have supported us in virtual teaching. So Menti is a great way for you to engage students. And there's a couple of different ways. If you're not familiar with Mentimeter, you can do this fun word cloud thing. There's a few different ways that students can respond, and then it will take their answers and make it a cool visual. So we're going to use this in Jamboard today just to feature some virtual learning tools that you might use or that you might share with teachers if you haven't seen them before.
A lot of people want to focus on learn. They're here to learn, to collaborate, and for learning. So those are hopefully pieces that we will work on together and you'll walk away with. So we are going to look at the high leverage concepts learning progression document, which has been drafted, and make connections with other educators about using the high leverage concepts and All Learners resources. and think about how you can move forward and implement instruction using these documents. We really want you to walk away with something that's useful that you can take with you and put into practice after you leave today. So first off, some of you might be familiar with the high leverage concepts and high leverage assessments that have been developed by All Learners Network. If you're not, I'll just give you a brief overview. So the high leverage concepts have been developed and established as a way to really focus and target what's most essential for every student to leave their grade level understanding, so that when they get to the next year, that they have an access point and a foundation so that they can access the next year's math understanding. These are really meant to target your instruction and to be what you're guaranteeing for students, with the understanding that you're still teaching all of the Common Core standards for that grade level, and your students are still being exposed to the other standards, different models. But what we have on these maps are really what's most essential for all students, so that you target, when you're targeting interventions, they would be related to these concepts. And we have models on the maps that are really the models for intervention have been what's been proven with students to be most effective for them in gaining that conceptual understanding. So I just wanted to give you some time here to go ahead and explore the All Learners website, which is linked in here, to explore the high leverage concept maps and the assessments that are on there. There are also assessments for each grade level that are targeting and assessing and checking in on these specific concepts. Ashley, is there anything that I missed?
I don't think so. I just think it's important, if you haven't heard of the high leverage concepts, just take a quick peek at those to make sure that this is the 3 to 5 document, but they're linked right down in the bottom left corner there. It brings you to the All Learners Network website to see the high leverage concepts and then the high leverage assessments, just to make sure before we move into the progressions that you're aware of the high leverage concept for the grade level that you're going to focus on today, because the progression documents were written based on the high leverage concept at the given grade level. So if you're not familiar with the high leverage concept for, say, second grade, just make sure you take a quick peek at that so you know what we're talking about when we move into the progressions.
All right, we're going to come back together. And if anybody has any questions about the high leverage concepts as you looked at the maps, I just wanted to give you guys a minute to ask those now. You can give me like a thumbs up if you feel like you're good and ready to move on to the next piece. Or
I think somebody has a
Yeah, I have a question, which I feel a little silly asking, but I'm not the only upper grades teacher in this session, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you, like, I thought I understood the word cardinality, but I'm realizing I don't understand how it applies in like number concepts in pre-K and K. What does that mean?
so counting and cardinality, counting is like when you count the group and then you ask how many you counted, recognizing and being able to say like that whole collection you just counted and know. So if kids are counting out 10 objects and you say, how many do you have there? If they need to go back and recount and they don't recognize that group that they just counted, like that amount is 10, then they would not have cardinality.
So it's just understanding that your landing number represents quantity.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I didn't know if that was a question or not, or maybe just a movement there.
I
All right.
guess I do.
Okay.
I'm just becoming familiar with the high leverage concept, and like the visual is great. I'm wondering, like, if I didn't know what multiple 10 frames were or what to do with them, is that available to me some way?
So we are in the process, I think, of working on a little bit of an introduction to what the high leverage concepts are and how to use them.
Okay.
And we also, these documents that I'm going to share with you now that have just been developed are something that people have been asking for and we've been working on. So what we've done, and I can share with you so we can look at an example of it, are to take each of the high leverage concepts, so by grade level, and if my computer will not be so slow, is taken it, and then we've taken each grade level and broken down what a learning progression might look like to build up to that. So it doesn't necessarily define all the tools, but that's a great idea to have that as an additional resource somewhere. But it does break down like what are the steps and what are the pieces that a student would go through as they're building this understanding of the high leverage concept. So as you can see here in second grade, we've taken down the oral counting sequence and we've made a progression, and it's very much a progression of like the stages a student would go through and not necessarily like a time specific.
Right.
It's more sequentially, like first they would count forward and backward within 120th, starting at any number. And then they would kind of move up to 220 and see how that would progress throughout the year, while at the same time kind of moving down the page to see what other skills are developing, because some pieces will be developing simultaneously. And then we left some empty boxes in for some things that would start a little bit later in the year or a little bit later as they're developing.
Yeah, that'll be really valuable.
That it might not be, you know, we're hoping it's for all students within that year, but knowing that students are in different places and they might spend more time than others as they move through building that understanding.
Thank you.
So Tracy, what I am hearing you say though, there is a little bit of an assumption in both of these. This learning progression document is brand new. We just finished this less than a month ago. But even with the high leverage concepts, there is a little bit of an assumption of understanding of math vocabulary. So it's I just jotted that down. And one of the things we're going to be giving all of you at the end of this presentation is a Google form to give us some feedback. Only, you know, we've looked at this as facilitators, a tiny little group of us have been working on this, but I think that's good feedback, that having some type of glossary available now that I heard the question about cardinality, just some of those terms that someone brand new to teaching a grade level might need, that it's nice to have it available quickly versus having to go read something else to learn about cardinality. And then come back to this document if we had almost just a little quick.
Even if it linked,
Right, that's a great that's a great suggestion. We do have an introduction document that we're not going to put it up today because we're talking you through it today, but that would be a good place. I'm thinking that we could, Erica, link something like you know, math vocabulary you'll need to know in order to understand these documents for somebody brand new to a grade level.
Yeah, great.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Because we're trying to constantly think of how can these documents be really user friendly and useful to someone, and maybe someone who's not new to teaching, but maybe someone who's switching a grade level, so that you do have that whole new learning to take place to get more comfortable with it. So that's a great idea.
I appreciate that, because I know we've created new tools on my team as well. And it's one thing to like create it and then for people to start using it. So thanks.
I was just saying a very specific context specific glossary would be super helpful, because you read it and you feel like I was reading that for kindergarten, feeling like I know all these words and yet I don't somehow.
Well, and I
Well,
think
and
that's
even
very,
even as an elementary level, somebody who teaches, fifth grade may not really be having conversations about cardinality anymore. So it's not like it's even somebody who worked at the high school level and then is coming down to kindergarten. It's if you're not working in that grade level, I teach third grade, so I'm living in multiplicative reasoning, but working on these progressions, I needed to do so much research about fractional reasoning as we were working on the grade 5 because I don't live in it every day. So I think that's a great suggestion, just knowing that not everybody's working in the grade level they're most comfortable with. And we want to try to make these resources useful for people, especially in that first 2 years when you're learning a new grade level content, to have something to live off of as you're planning your intervention.
and I think to add on to that, also another hope and plan for these documents is that as people are working, and if you're working as a special educator or interventionist, and you have those students who you might have to go back one or more grade levels to really help plan for those students, that having that glossary and information for people who are using them in a different context. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms. I'm going to just pop up on here. Can you see the website, or did you lose me? Okay. So
It's the folder. We can see the folder.
Yep. So you'll see a folder, and you can pick which grade level or grade levels that your group wants to look at. We have pre-K to second grade in this folder. Really, if you are in a group and you really want to look at the 3 to 5 folder, that's also linked in there. So just because our focus is on pre-K to 2 right now, don't feel like you should restrict yourself if you have time or have a strong need to look at that. And in here, you can just open up whichever grade level you want, and really you'll see what we've been working on. And we just want you to have a conversation around that as a group. Think about how you might be able to use these documents in planning and working with students for your instruction.
It's just a note on how these, Erica and I have lived in these documents for a couple of months now, so we know how these are written and we can read them really easily. But what we're really looking for today is feedback on readability for fresh eyes, people who haven't seen this before. Our goal was to include the high leverage concept at the top for that grade level. And then you're reading the document both left to right and top down. So left to right moves starting in beginning of the year around September, moving into where we would expect students to demonstrate understanding by June. But it also starts from top down. So if you're looking right now at the kindergarten, starting with rote oral count sequence would be what you would be working on at the very beginning of the year. And then you would move into subitizing, counting objects to determine cardinality. A lot of these in the pre-K to 2 are happening simultaneously. So in this particular session, a lot of these would be things you'd be working on at the same time. But if you do choose to look at the 3 to 5, when we move into multiplicative reasoning and fractional reasoning, it's a lot more sequential how those concepts are built through models. So just be aware of that as you're looking at the documents. And when you come back together, we're going to ask you to share how you envision using these documents, how you envision using the high leverage concepts, how these could be beneficial for you. Part of that is for selfish reasons, for us to make sure that these documents are going to be able to be used in a way that's beneficial to teachers and interventionists and curriculum leaders. But we're also asking for you to take some notes on what do you notice any issues with, what are, down to spelling errors. We think we went through and fixed all of the formatting, but like I said, we literally finished these up a month ago. You are the first people looking at these for us. So it's totally okay if you have a lot of feedback for us, because we really want to make these usable documents.
The rooms that I went into, it sounded like there were some amazing conversations going on. All right, so let's take a couple minutes and you can add something to this Jamboard and take a minute to look through some of those ideas. And then since we have almost 20 minutes now, we still have some time to kind of have a conversation too, because you guys really had a great conversation. So let's take like 3 minutes to do the Jamboard.
If Jamboard is new to you, when you click open that link, it's going to be just a blank slide with the question on it. We're really looking for how you plan to use these documents, either in your intervention, whole group instruction, however you best see using these documents. And on the left side, there are a few tools you can click on. You could draw or write if you have a touch screen, if you'd prefer to do that. But with so many of us, and if we want to be able to see everything on the same one, the easiest way to do it is click the little Post-it note picture. It comes up like a text box and you can type your thoughts in there. There's an example right there. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence, just a couple of ideas. And at the top, there's a plus sign. If you run out of space, you can add a page. So just let us know. You can private message us or raise your hand if you need help with the Jamboard. We can share our screen if you need it.
All right, I feel like, if there's anything that anybody wants to share whole group or any questions while you have Ashley and I here, we can do our best to answer them.
I just was going to say, we have the draft watermark on these documents because we're still collecting feedback and adding to them, but you participated today. You have this folder now shared with you. It's not a secret that we are working on this project. So if you can see using these documents, tomorrow, obviously use them. We'll have them published on our site when they're finalized without the watermark on the back. But we hope that you were able to find something useful in these documents moving forward.
And hopefully, I know a lot of people were talking about like using this to plan student goals or IEP goals and having those next steps a little bit more clear than just the whole high leverage concept that you would learn by the end of the year, to have it pieced out a little bit.
We want you to keep coming back to All Learners Network. We have a lot of offerings going on this year. I know in 2 of the rooms that I was in, we talked about launch. So there's an entire launch workshop going on right now that's talking about how we can get students engaged in their math learning. If you click on that link on that last slide, it brings you to this PDF that has the All Learners Network website linked there. We worked on some online courses this spring that you can take. They're all 6-hour courses if you're needing some content for your license, or if you want to check out some other ALN resources. We have a menu subscription. There are free lessons we wrote in the spring. Obviously, the high leverage concepts we talked about today. We maintain a blog, and there's also a community discussion forum where teachers and education leaders, not just in Vermont, are sharing resources that are supporting their students.
That's all we have for you guys today. If you want an extra little bit of time for your lunch and take a break, by all means, feel free to. If you want to stay on, I'll be here if you have any other questions or thoughts that you wanted to add. But thank you for joining us today.